There comes a moment in every person's life when the ordinary rhythm of life is disrupted, not by chaos, but by the divine hand of God shifting everything for your destiny. If you've been feeling uneasy, restless, like something is about to break open, you're not imagining it. That feeling is not anxiety, it's alignment. You are being moved, not by circumstance, not by chance, but by God Himself. The Creator who set galaxies in motion is now realigning your life. And when God begins to shift things, it's never random, it's always intentional. You've prayed for change. You've cried in the midnight hour for breakthrough. You've walked through seasons that tried to crush you. And now the answer is in motion, but it will not come in the way you expect. God's movements are mysterious yet precise. When He starts shifting things, He hides purpose in what looks like pain. He disguises favor in what feels like rejection. But don't be fooled, He's working. God never shifts without a reason. When He begins to rearrange relationships, remove people, stir your spirit, close doors you thought you needed, He is not punishing you, He is positioning you. What you thought was a setback is actually a setup. That job you lost, that relationship that ended, that opportunity that vanished, it was part of the shift. You don't need to chase what God has released you from, because what's coming is greater than what you left behind. There are signs, subtle, spiritual signs that God is moving. It might be an unusual discomfort where you once felt peace. That's not confusion, that's divine tension. It's heaven pulling you out of your comfort zone. Or you may feel isolated, even misunderstood. That's not rejection, it's consecration. God is pulling you away from distractions so He can reveal what's next. The signs are often unexpected, unfamiliar faces showing up in your life with divine connections, doors opening that you didn't knock on, conversations that unlock vision, delays that save you, detours that lead to destiny. Many people miss the shift because they expect thunder and lightning, but God often speaks in whispers. He moves in moments of silence. The question is not whether He is shifting. The question is, are you listening? Can you discern the wind of change before it turns into a storm of breakthrough? Can you walk by faith when the signs don't make sense, but your spirit knows something is different? This is a divine season, and seasons don't ask for your permission. They come when God says it's time. You're not stuck, you're being repositioned. Don't mourn what's leaving, celebrate what's coming, because what God is sending in this shift will exceed your expectations. It will rewrite your story. He's taking you from overlooked to chosen, from broken to built up, from delayed to accelerated, from ordinary to anointed. You've been faithful in private. Now God is about to reward you in public. He's turning secret battles into public victories. But first, He has to shift you. Sometimes the shift looks like loss, but it's never loss in the kingdom. It's leverage. God subtracts to multiply. He closes one door so He can open another that you're prepared for. You see, the shift is not just about changing your surroundings. It's about changing you, your mind, your heart, your vision, your level of faith. Because you can't walk into your next with the same thinking that held you back in your last. This is why some doors stayed closed longer than you liked. God wasn't punishing you. He was preparing you. You had to mature. You had to unlearn. You had to heal, because the blessing would have crushed the old version of you. But now you're ready. You're different. You've survived too much to stay the same. That restlessness you feel, that divine dissatisfaction, it's your spirit recognizing that your environment no longer matches your assignment. God is stirring your soul for something greater. Some of you are being moved from survival mode to purpose mode. You won't just make it, you'll manifest what was spoken over your life. Prophecies are coming alive. Prayers are becoming your reality. And it's not because you earned it, it's because God promised it. You were chosen for this shift. Others may not understand it. That's okay. They didn't hear what God whispered to you in the dark. They didn't see the tears. They weren't there in the valley, but you were, and God was. And He's honoring your endurance with a divine elevation. This is why you cannot quit now. You're too close. The shift is not just coming, it's happening, slowly, then suddenly. Piece by piece, God is orchestrating alignment. He's bringing the right people, the right opportunities, the right provision. You won't have to force it. When it's God's shift, it flows. The doors open without manipulation. The connections are effortless. The peace confirms it. You might still feel resistance, but resistance is proof that something is moving. Friction only happens where there's movement. The enemy wouldn't be fighting you this hard if you weren't a threat. The pressure you feel, that's heaven's weight behind your destiny. That's legacy forming in the fire. You are being expanded for what you've been entrusted with. Don't get distracted by temporary discomfort. Keep your eyes on the signs. Listen beyond the noise. God speaks through interruptions. He hides glory in disruptions. And sometimes what you call a problem is actually prophecy unfolding. You prayed for purpose. Now purpose is disrupting your routine. You asked for increase. Now God is clearing space. You asked for direction. Now He's ending cycles. This is not the time to resist the shift. This is the time to flow with it, trust it, embrace it, yield to it. What's uncomfortable now will be undeniable soon. God is shifting relationships, locations, assignments, and even identities. He's calling you higher, not to make you popular, but to make you powerful, not to impress people, but to impact lives. You're not being punished, you're being promoted, you're not being left behind, you're being launched. What feels like ending is actually emergence, a birthing of purpose, a revealing of identity, a season where heaven's favor touches what your hands touch, where prayers become plans, where vision becomes visible. Watch closely, speak boldly, walk faithfully, because when God shifts things, He does it suddenly, thoroughly, and irrevocably. What He's about to do, no man can undo. No system can block it. No delay can deny it. You've waited, you've warred, you've wept, but now it's time to walk. Walk into what's been waiting for you, because God is shifting everything and it's your time. Let the world watch. Let heaven rejoice. The shift has started and you are the evidence. There are no coincidences in the life of someone aligned with purpose. When God begins to shift things in your life, it is never by accident. It's not a random twist of fate, nor the result of some unpredictable chaos. It is an intentional move orchestrated by the Creator of heaven and earth, who knows the end from the beginning. You are not being tossed around by life's currents. You are being carried by divine design. There's a difference between drifting and being directed. And when God directs, every step, every stop, and every change is wrapped in meaning. People often misinterpret divine shifts as disruptions. To the natural eye, it can look like confusion, like doors closing, opportunities vanishing, relationships dissolving, or even life becoming inconvenient and uncertain. But to the discerning heart, it's much more than that. It's a sign that heaven is intervening. It's a divine interruption to rescue you from cycles you didn't even know were keeping you stuck. It's God saying, you've stayed here long enough. It's time to move forward. You see, God does not deal in randomness. His thoughts are higher, His timing is perfect, and His purpose is always precise. When He moves, He does so with the entire blueprint in mind. You may only see a fragment, but God sees the full picture. He sees not only where you are, but where He designed you to be. And every time He begins shifting things in your life, it's because something in your current condition no longer matches the promise He placed inside you. Sometimes God will allow things to become uncomfortable, not to punish you, but to push you. He'll stir your spirit, disrupt your plans, and close familiar doors to awaken a deeper dependency on Him. That job that suddenly ended, that connection that unexpectedly faded, that routine that no longer satisfies, those aren't breakdowns. They're breakthroughs in disguise. God is not breaking you. He's building you through a better route. He's redirecting you away from what you thought you needed so you can arrive at what He always intended. When you've been praying for next level purpose, you must be prepared for next level adjustments. God does not shift without reason. The shift is always connected to your destiny. He removes what is no longer useful. He exposes what you couldn't see. He distances you from voices that would distort your focus. Not because He wants you isolated, but because He wants you aligned. And alignment always requires pruning. Purpose cannot grow in clutter. You are not just on earth to exist. You were sent here to fulfill a divine assignment. And when the time comes for the next chapter of that assignment, God initiates a holy disturbance. You may be tempted to resist it, to hold on tightly to the familiar, to question everything that's being shaken. But in those very moments, you must remember, this is not chaos. This is coordination. God is not just rearranging your outer world. He is realigning your spirit with His original intention for your life. That's why you cannot afford to misread the shift. When things begin to change, don't be so quick to call it failure. Instead, seek God's wisdom and ask, what are you shifting me toward? Because every divine shift carries a divine invitation, an invitation to grow, to trust deeper, to discover who you truly are without the layers of limitation life has tried to place on you. The shift exposes the gap between your current condition and your called capacity. It's a holy nudge, a supernatural stirring to get you out of the comfort of routine and into the motion of purpose. Understand that God is not bound by your plans. He's not limited by your schedule. He's not confined to your expectations. So when He initiates a shift, it might not make sense in the moment. You might feel like you're losing control, but you're not. You're just releasing control back to the one who should have had it all along. And in that surrender, God begins to accelerate what you thought would take years. He begins to open doors no man can shut. He begins to unfold plans that you never would have imagined, yet they fit you better than anything you ever dreamed of. Some of the greatest moves of God come disguised as disruptions. But when you recognize that the disruption is actually direction, everything changes. You stop fighting what God is trying to remove. You stop grieving over what God has already released. You stop fearing the unknown and instead begin walking with boldness into the divine unknown where miracles manifest and identity is revealed. This shift in your life is not a detour, it's destiny. It is the divine hand of God saying, I'm taking you higher, I'm taking you deeper, and I'm taking you further than you thought was possible. What feels like being uprooted is actually God replanting you into richer soil. He's not taking from you, He's transitioning you. And if you trust Him in the shift, you'll see why the detour was necessary. You'll understand that what looked like divine disruption was actually divine delivery. You'll realize that God never moves things in your life without setting you up for something greater. So when everything starts to shift, don't panic, don't resist. Recognize the fingerprints of God, trust the process, and lean into the movement because the shift is sacred. And God, in His infinite wisdom, is being intentional with every detail of your life. There are seasons in life when everything around you seems stable, yet inside your spirit begins to stir. You can't explain it to anyone. Nothing dramatic has happened. There's no crisis, no visible reason for discomfort. And yet, deep within you, there's a sense that something is shifting. That silent restlessness, that holy discontent is not confusion. It's not something to dismiss or run from. It is God's whisper beneath the surface, signaling that change is near. The unease you feel is not a threat. It's an invitation to pay attention, to lean in, and to prepare for divine movement. Discomfort, when it is heaven-sent, is never without purpose. It is often the first indicator that your current environment can no longer hold the fullness of your calling. God allows the nest to feel tight so you no longer settle where you were meant to soar. Like an eagle stirring her young, God removes the softness from where you once found comfort. He interrupts your peace, not to cause panic, but to provoke purpose. He knows that if He doesn't shift something within you, you might never move into what He's called you to. That internal stirring is divine positioning in progress. When you belong to God, He refuses to let you settle beneath your potential. He will not allow you to grow content in places where you were only meant to pass through. And so discomfort comes, not as punishment, but as preparation. It's the gentle tug that tells you, you've outgrown this level. It's time for more. It's time to stretch. It's time to evolve. God never brings discomfort without destiny on His mind. He stirs your spirit because He's expanding your assignment. Often we mistake this divine discomfort as a sign that something is wrong with us. We begin to question ourselves, doubt our decisions, and feel isolated in the shift. But discomfort doesn't mean disorder. It means you're moving into divine order. It's the recalibration of your heart to a higher frequency. When your spirit is being stretched, it may feel like agitation, but it's actually alignment. God is aligning you with what He's already prepared. You may find that things which once excited you no longer inspire you. The routine that once gave you peace now feels empty. The conversations that once fueled you now feel draining. That's not depression. That's transformation. You are being molded for what's next. And the version of you that is emerging cannot thrive in the old rhythm. God is disrupting your comfort zone because your calling requires a new climate. Something deep inside you is waking up, and that awakening requires room to breathe. Don't resist the stirring. Don't numb it with distraction or dismiss it as emotional confusion. The discomfort you feel is sacred. It's a message from heaven that your season is shifting. What once served you is now limiting you. And God, in His mercy, won't let you stay where you no longer belong. He will unsettle you with purpose. He will disturb your comfort to deliver you into clarity. Because it's in the discomfort that vision is refined and identity is revealed. Many people ask for change, but when change knocks in the form of discomfort, they retreat. They run back to what's familiar. They cling to routine. But if you truly desire to grow, you must be willing to sit in the stretch. Discomfort is often the doorway to destiny. God doesn't lead you through ease. He leads you through encounters that refine your faith, reshape your character, and redefine your direction. You cannot become who He's called you to be without being disrupted from who you used to be. This is where your discernment must increase. Because when God begins to stir your spirit, not everyone will understand. Some will tell you to settle down, to be content, to stop pushing, but you'll know this is not restlessness for the sake of motion. This is movement born from divine urgency. Your spirit knows something your mind hasn't yet caught up with. You are being prepared for places that eyes have not seen and ears have not heard. And to get there, your soul must first be unsettled. There's something powerful about learning to embrace discomfort with trust. When you no longer see it as a threat, you begin to recognize it as a teacher. It teaches you to listen more deeply, to seek God more earnestly, to let go more freely. Because the moment you stop resisting the stretch, you allow the transformation to do its perfect work. You stop clinging to what's safe and start embracing what's sacred. You may not see the full picture now. You may only feel the unease, the agitation, the internal restlessness, but in time you will look back and realize that was the moment God started shifting me. That was when He began calling me higher. That was when He pulled me from the crowd, silenced the noise, and ignited something eternal within me. And had I ignored that discomfort, I would have missed the door it was leading me to. So be still, but don't be stuck. Be watchful, but don't be worried. This discomfort is not your enemy. It is your compass. God is not trying to confuse you. He's preparing to elevate you. Let the discomfort refine you. Let it stretch your thinking. Let it empty you of the old so that the new can rise. Because when divine discomfort shows up, it means heaven has marked you for more. It's one of the most misunderstood parts of the divine journey. When God answers your prayers, not with addition, but with subtraction. When people walk away, opportunities slip through your fingers, doors close in your face, and things you thought you needed are suddenly removed from your life. It doesn't feel like favor. It doesn't feel like blessing. In fact, it often feels like betrayal, abandonment, or even punishment. But that is where the mystery of God's ways must be understood, because what looks like rejection is very often the disguise of divine favor. God is too wise to let you hold on to something that will delay or damage your destiny. Sometimes His love removes things. Sometimes His protection comes in the form of a closed door. Sometimes His elevation begins with isolation. When He takes something away, it's not to hurt you, it's to help you step into something higher. But our human nature wants to cling. We hold on to people, routines, titles, environments, and habits that were only meant to be seasonal. And when God begins to prune, it feels like loss. But in the kingdom, what you call loss, God calls preparation. You see, divine favor doesn't always show up with applause and visible rewards. It often arrives silently, wrapped in what appears to be rejection. That job you didn't get, that relationship that ended, that circle that no longer includes you, those aren't failures. They're divine filters. God filters your life to protect the purity of your purpose. And He'll never let you stay connected to what can't go where He's taking you. So rather than mourn what left, discern what's coming. Rejection is often the redirection of favor. Favor doesn't make sense to the natural mind. It doesn't always come through comfort. It comes through conviction, through correction, through unexpected shifts. That's why you must train your spirit to see beyond the visible. Favor can be dressed in loneliness. It can be hidden in closed doors. It can arrive through silence, separation, and seasons of being overlooked. But don't be fooled. Heaven knows your name, and what is removed from your life is often the loudest confirmation that something greater is being made room for. We ask God to use us, to lead us, to bless us, and then He starts removing things we thought we couldn't live without. That's when faith must become mature. That's when trust must run deep. You must learn to say, even when I don't understand it, I believe it's for my good. Because favor that builds your future will sometimes first break your routine. God will subtract people whose presence was draining your purpose. He will eliminate paths that seem promising but would have ended in compromise. And yes, it will hurt. But favor is not about comfort. It's about calling. You might wonder why certain people turned their back on you, why that connection faded, why your name was left off the list. But if God allowed it to fall apart, it was never holding your future. Sometimes rejection is the divine signal that your season with that person, that place, or that pattern has expired. And it's not just about removing the wrong, it's also about protecting the right. God knows your future connections. He sees the rooms you're going to walk into, and He won't let you drag dysfunction into your next dimension. The truth is, rejection purifies your focus. It sharpens your vision. When people walk away, when systems fail you, when doors slam shut, it's painful, yes, but it also creates silence. And in that silence, God speaks. You begin to hear Him more clearly. You begin to see what you missed while you were busy chasing acceptance. That's when you discover the difference between popularity and purpose, between applause and anointing, between what feeds your ego and what fulfills your assignment. Favor is not about everyone liking you. It's about being aligned with God's design for your life. And sometimes that design requires disconnection. There are doors that will never open until others close. There are places God can't take you until you release what's in your hand. You can't carry old weight into new seasons. So when God begins to remove, release, and rearrange, don't resist. Don't mourn something He's already replaced in the spiritual realm. What feels like rejection now will soon be revealed as protection and preparation. Sometimes the blessing is not in what God gives, but in what He doesn't allow. That rejection that broke your heart may have saved your calling. That detour you didn't plan may have led you away from destruction. That goodbye you didn't see coming may have been the very thing that freed you to walk into your true identity. It's only in hindsight that you'll recognize it for what it was. Favor in disguise. God doesn't always explain what He's doing, but He always acts with purpose. So don't waste your energy chasing what He's released. Don't try to revive what God has already buried. Instead, walk forward with the quiet confidence of one who knows that rejection is not the end. It's often the beginning of a new level of favor, one that doesn't depend on validation, one that doesn't beg for inclusion, one that flows from heaven regardless of who walks away. What you thought was rejection was actually redirection. What you thought was loss was really leverage. And what you thought was the end was God setting the stage for your next chapter. Because favor doesn't always come easy, but it always comes right. And when God favors you, no rejection can cancel it, no person can block it, and no circumstance can steal it. Favor, even when disguised as rejection, is still favor. There's a divine mystery in the way God speaks. While many wait for thunder, lightning, or grand signs in the sky, God often chooses to whisper. His most powerful directions rarely come in the noise. They come in stillness. He doesn't always announce his plans with fireworks. Sometimes he moves so quietly that if you're not paying attention, you'll miss the shift entirely. That's why discernment is more powerful than sight in seasons of transition. If you're always looking for the loud, you may overlook the leading. When God begins to shift your life, he doesn't need to broadcast it to everyone. He's not trying to impress the crowd. He's trying to shape your character. That's why he often moves in silence. In the middle of your ordinary days, he's orchestrating extraordinary changes. While you're busy managing the routine, he's behind the scenes making divine adjustments. The whisper comes when the heart is quiet, when the soul is still enough to hear the sound of heaven brushing against your spirit. The truth is, God doesn't compete with chaos. He doesn't shout over the clutter. Instead, he invites you into a deeper space, a quieter place, where the volume of the world is turned down and the clarity of his voice is turned up. It's in this sacred silence that divine instructions are released. It's not always what you hear with your ears. It's what you sense in your spirit. A nudge, a pull, a knowing that's hard to explain but impossible to ignore. Many miss the move of God because they expect it to come packaged in drama. But God is not loud to prove he's present. His presence is powerful, even when it's subtle. The cloud that led the Israelites by day didn't make noise, but it moved, and those who were in tune followed it. The whisper to Elijah in the cave wasn't dramatic, but it was divine. God didn't speak in the wind or earthquake or fire. He spoke in a still, small voice. That's the rhythm of the Spirit. Soft, yet strong. Quiet, yet undeniable. Sometimes God's whispers come as a change in your desires. What once excited you no longer fulfills you. What once felt right now feels off. That subtle shift isn't confusion, it's revelation. It's God aligning your heart with your future. Other times the whisper shows up as restlessness. Not loud, not overwhelming, just a quiet discomfort in places you once called home. That's the whisper saying, you're not meant to stay here. There will be moments when God removes certain voices from your life, not because of anger or disconnection, but because their noise was drowning out his whisper. You won't always understand why people leave, why relationships fade, or why doors close. But in the stillness that follows, you'll hear something deeper, an inner voice, clear and calm, guiding you forward. And when that whisper speaks, it doesn't need confirmation from the crowd. It carries the weight of heaven's authority. The enemy knows that if you hear the whisper, you'll walk into destiny. So he sends distractions, constant noise, endless opinions, emotional clutter. If the enemy can't destroy you, he'll distract you, because distraction delays direction. That's why silence is not your enemy, it's your sanctuary. In silence, your spirit recalibrates. In silence, your sensitivity increases. You begin to see beyond the surface and hear beyond the words. Those who are truly led by God learn to value stillness. They understand that the greatest miracles often begin with quiet instructions. Go here, call them, apply now, let go. It's not always grand speeches. It's simple obedience to a soft voice. And those who listen, truly listen, step into places others only dream of, because they didn't wait for the noise. They followed the nudge. They obeyed the whisper. When God whispers, he's not being distant. He's drawing you closer. He's teaching you intimacy. He's pulling you into a relationship that requires attention and trust. Anyone can follow a loud voice, but it takes faith to follow a whisper. It takes trust to walk on water just because he said, come. It takes courage to change course because a gentle voice told you to. You must learn to be still enough to notice divine patterns. Watch how your peace follows certain decisions. Pay attention to where your spirit is disturbed. Those inner reactions are often the language of the whisper. God rarely forces, he leads. He doesn't drive you with pressure. He guides you with presence. And when he's in it, even a whisper can open doors, change lives, and shift your entire future. So train your ears to hear the silent stirrings. Watch for the moments that don't seem dramatic, yet leave your soul changed. Don't overlook the small confirmations, the simple phrases, the subtle instructions. Heaven speaks in hidden tones, and those who hear it are never the same. The whisper may not make headlines, it won't always make sense, but it will make impact, because when God speaks, whether in thunder or in silence, what he says always comes to pass. You just have to be quiet enough, still enough, and hungry enough to hear it. There comes a time in every divinely guided journey when the path gets lonely, when the noise fades, and the familiar voices go silent. It's a season many fear and few understand. But in the eyes of heaven, isolation is not abandonment, it is consecration. When God pulls you away from the crowd, it's not to punish you, but to prepare you. He doesn't isolate you to leave you behind. He isolates you to align you with something greater than you could ever experience, surrounded by distractions. You see, when God has marked your life for a higher calling, he won't allow you to remain entangled with everything and everyone. There is a sacred place where he begins to whisper new instructions, stretch your vision, and reveal dimensions of your identity that you never knew were there. And to do that, he must remove the unnecessary noise. He must distance you from the voices that dilute your purpose. Not all company is covenant. Not every connection is meant to go with you into the next dimension of your destiny. God knows that growth often requires separation. Just as a seed must be buried in darkness before it breaks forth into life, so must your spirit sometimes be hidden before it can emerge into purpose. That season of being unseen, uncelebrated, and perhaps even misunderstood is not a sign that you've missed your way. It's a sign that you're right on schedule. You are being hidden on purpose for a purpose. The quiet space you've been drawn into is where transformation takes place. It may feel like rejection, but it's divine refinement. The silence is not empty, it's sacred. That place where it seems like nobody understands you, where conversations grow fewer and invitations stop coming, that is where God sharpens your clarity. He fine-tunes your hearing. He detoxes your soul from the dependence on validation, because where he's taking you, you can't rely on popularity. You have to walk by purpose, and purpose is cultivated in the quiet, not in the crowd. Don't confuse the absence of people with the absence of purpose. In fact, some of the most powerful seasons of preparation are wrapped in isolation. When Joseph was placed in a pit and then a prison, he wasn't being cast away. He was being developed. He was being set apart so that his character could catch up with his calling. The isolation was not a sign of insignificance. It was the proving ground for greatness. God uses isolation to strip you of the need to perform, to be liked, to please others. He brings you into a place where your only audience is him. Your only affirmation comes from his presence, and your only direction flows from his voice. This is where you stop striving to be seen and start living to be sent. Because when you are truly consecrated, you no longer crave crowds. You crave clarity. You crave intimacy with the one who knows your name and your future. It's in this sacred solitude that God begins to show you who you really are. He reveals the power in your voice, the depth of your vision, and the strength of your resilience. You begin to discover dreams that were buried under busyness, talents that were hidden beneath comparison, and confidence that was drowned out by noise. In isolation, you stop surviving and start awakening. And though it feels uncomfortable, it is necessary. You cannot carry divine assignments while still clinging to everything familiar. There are weights God must remove from your life, and sometimes that means removing people, places, and patterns that no longer serve your next. The separation is not rejection. It's an invitation to grow, to be stretched, to be purified in the fire of destiny. God knows what's ahead of you, and in his mercy, he prepares you for it by pulling you away for a season. He lets the phone grow quiet. He lets the room empty. He lets the applause die down, not to hurt you, but to help you see that your value is not in how many people call your name. It's in the authority he's placed in your spirit. He reminds you that you don't need a crowd to carry power. You need conviction, you need calling, and you need clarity. So don't despise the isolation. Embrace it as divine strategy. It's not a punishment, it's a promotion in disguise. You're not being overlooked, you're being overhauled. You're being refined like gold, shaped like clay, and prepared like a vessel. And when the time is right, the same God who called you into the quiet will call you into the spotlight. Not to perform, but to release what He has deposited in you during the hidden season. Every moment of isolation is loaded with intention. Every delay is soaked in purpose. Every lonely prayer is heard. Every tear has weight. God sees you. And though others may not understand the silence you're in, heaven does. Because isolation, when it comes from God, is not emptiness, it's incubation. It's where purpose is born, faith is strengthened, and identity is secured. You are not alone, you are being consecrated. Before God shifts your surroundings, He will first shift you. That is one of the most powerful, yet often overlooked truths in the journey of purpose. We pray for open doors, for breakthroughs, for external miracles, for environments to change, for people around us to support us differently. But God, in His divine wisdom, does not begin with the outside. He begins with the inside, because what's external can never truly change until the internal is transformed. The atmosphere around you responds to the atmosphere within you. When God begins a new work in your life, He doesn't immediately move the pieces around you. He starts with your mind, your heart, your perspective, your habits, and your faith. You may be praying for Him to fix the situation, but He's preparing you to be the solution. He works within you first, because the next level of your destiny requires a stronger version of you, one that's not easily shaken, one that sees with spiritual eyes, one that walks by conviction, not convenience. God knows that giving you what you're asking for without preparing you would be unkind. So before the blessing shows up, the breaking happens. Before the elevation comes, the excavation. Before the fulfillment of the promise, there is the refinement of the person. God will change your thoughts. He'll confront your fears. He'll highlight your insecurities, not to shame you, but to strengthen you, because you cannot walk into a new season with the same mindset that kept you bound in the old one. Sometimes you'll find that your appetite begins to change. You'll lose interest in the conversations you used to enjoy. The things that once entertained you no longer satisfy. That's not boredom, it's transformation. God is rewiring your spirit to crave deeper things. You no longer settle for surface level. You hunger for truth, for alignment, for real encounters with Him. The shift inside of you is a signal that what once fed your old identity can no longer nourish where you're going. This inner shift can feel confusing because the world around you remains the same, yet everything within you feels different. You're still walking the same path, but you sense that your steps are heavier with purpose. You're surrounded by the same faces, but your spirit feels like it's on another frequency. That's the evidence that God is working. Not everyone will see it. Not everyone will understand it, but you'll feel it because He's setting you apart for what's next. God will begin to challenge your comfort zones. The routines you used to lean on for security will start to feel tight. He'll push you to grow in discipline, to shed old habits, to confront the patterns that keep you stuck. He won't just hand you a new life, He'll teach you how to carry it. Because if He changed your environment without changing you, you'd sabotage the blessing. The weight of your calling requires a foundation that won't crack under pressure. You may start to feel stretched in unfamiliar ways. Your patience will be tested. Your faith will be pulled. Your obedience will be questioned not by others, but by the quiet voice within that wonders, can I really trust God this deeply? And every time you say yes, even in the discomfort, you take one more step into the new you. The you that's not driven by fear, but anchored in faith. The you that walks not by sight, but by vision. This internal shift often comes before any external proof. People may still treat you the same. Circumstances might still look the same, but you know something has changed. You're no longer begging for validation. You're no longer controlled by the opinions of others. You're no longer bound to your past because you've started to see yourself the way God sees you. And when that happens, the world around you begins to catch up. People notice, doors open, favor follows, but it all started within. God is not in a rush to change your situation. He is committed to changing your soul, because when you become who you were created to be, your situation has no choice but to align. You don't need to chase open doors. They swing open for the version of you that's been refined by fire and matured by process. The shift inside you begins to attract everything you were once trying to force. One of the hardest things to grasp on this divine journey is that what feels like delay is often not denial, it is preparation. It's the pause that heaven places on your life to protect you from stepping into something before you're ready. We live in a world that demands instant results, quick success, and immediate answers. But God does not operate on human timelines. He moves according to purpose, not pressure. And when He holds something back, it's not because He's withholding goodness, it's because He's building greatness within you. You may feel ready, but God sees the unseen. He sees the pride you haven't confronted yet, the wounds you haven't healed from, the habits that need to be broken, the discipline that needs to be developed. He sees the pressure that comes with promotion and the weight that comes with blessing. And rather than setting you up for collapse, He sets you up for capacity. The delay is building something deep in you that acceleration never could. It's making your roots stronger, your discernment sharper, and your faith deeper. Sometimes the delay is not about developing something in you. It's about protecting you from something ahead. You don't know what's around the corner, but God does. He knows what connections are traps. He knows what opportunity looks good on the surface, but carries destruction underneath. So when He blocks it, when He slows things down, when He causes you to wait, it's not to hurt you, it's to keep you. You'll never regret what God protected you from, even if you didn't understand it at the time. Waiting seasons are not wasted seasons. They are working seasons. In the delay, God reveals things about Himself you couldn't learn any other way. You learn to lean on Him, not on outcomes. You learn to trust His heart when you can't see His hand. You begin to recognize His presence in the silence and His fingerprints in the small details. That kind of intimacy is only born in the wait. That kind of maturity only comes when you have no choice but to surrender your timeline and say, God, I trust you, even here. It's in the delay that real faith is forged. Not the kind of faith that gets loud in church services, but the kind that holds steady when nothing is moving. The kind that wakes up day after day, keeps believing, keeps showing up, keeps praying, even when the answer hasn't come yet. That kind of faith becomes unshakable. And that's what God is after. He's not trying to make you popular. He's trying to make you powerful. And power comes through process, not through shortcuts, not through rushing, but through waiting with expectation. You'll know you've grown when you stop seeing delay as punishment and start seeing it as protection. When you stop asking, why is this taking so long? And start asking, what are you trying to teach me here? Because every delay has a lesson attached. Every pause has purpose. Sometimes God delays your request because what you asked for was too small. He's preparing something far beyond what you imagined, and the time it takes to build it requires patience. He is not just answering your prayer, He is exceeding it. And while you wait, He's not inactive. Heaven is never on pause. Angels are moving. Alignments are forming. Your name is being mentioned in rooms you haven't entered yet. God is setting the stage, positioning the right people, and orchestrating divine timing. What you think is still is actually strategic. The silence is sacred. God does His best work in what looks like stillness. It's important to understand that delay is often a divine filter. It separates those who only wanted the blessing from those who truly want the one who gives it. It reveals motives, refines dreams, and repositions hearts. Sometimes God waits to bless you because the delay reveals who should not go with you. It exposes the wrong alignments. It burns away superficiality. By the time the promise arrives, only the pure remain. And that is how you step into blessing without baggage. So if you're in a waiting season right now, don't let discouragement speak louder than destiny. Don't let impatience talk you out of the promise. Don't let delay convince you that God has changed his mind. He hasn't. He's just making sure that when it happens, it will last. That when it opens, you'll be ready. That when it arrives, you'll be matured enough to carry it with grace and not crumble under the weight. God is not late. He's precise. He's on time every time. And when the delay ends and the door opens, you'll realize that the waiting was never in vain. It was the womb of your next. The delay was not denial. It was design. One of the clearest signs that God is shifting everything in your life is when you start feeling disconnected from things that once felt comfortable. It's not confusion, it's divine disconnection. You begin to notice that certain environments, certain conversations, and even certain relationships no longer sit right with your spirit. You can't explain it logically, but you know something has shifted. What used to inspire you now feels stale. What once felt like home now feels like limitation. It's not arrogance, it's not pride, it's not rebellion. It's heaven gently pulling you away from what no longer aligns with your assignment. This disconnection is sacred. It is the evidence that God is preparing you for something greater. You can no longer force what's fading. You can no longer pretend that what's dying is still alive. You feel the stretch, the ache, the tension. And it's not because you're broken. It's because you're growing. You are shedding old skin, old cycles, old dependencies. And though that can feel painful, it is the divine proof that you are being prepared for a higher place. Often, before God elevates you, He isolates you. It's in the isolation that He removes the noise. He disconnects you from the familiar to expose you to the deeper. You begin to see through things you used to be blind to. You begin to question what you once blindly accepted. The curtain is pulled back and your spirit becomes sensitive. It's like walking through a room that used to fit perfectly, and suddenly the ceiling feels too low and the walls feel too close. That's the disconnection working. That's the Holy Spirit saying, you don't belong here anymore. You may not even know where you're going next, but you're certain you can't stay where you are. This is where the divine tension lives, in the space between what was and what's coming. You're no longer who you used to be, but you haven't yet stepped into the fullness of who you are becoming. That's when trust in God becomes your anchor. Because when your surroundings no longer affirm you and your comfort zones no longer sustain you, the only constant left is His voice. And sometimes His voice leads you away before it leads you ahead. You may notice that people around you begin to misunderstand you. The ones who once celebrated you now question your choices. The conversations that once flowed effortlessly now feel dry. And you wonder, did I do something wrong? But in reality, it's not about wrong or right, it's about alignment. God will not allow you to stay connected to places that can't carry your next. Not because those places are evil, but because they are expired. What served your past may strangle your future. And so in love, God disconnects you. It can feel lonely, but loneliness is not abandonment. It's separation for sanctification. It's heaven calling you away to recalibrate your identity, to reset your focus, to redefine your standards. When you stop being emotionally tied to what's beneath you, you begin to recognize what's truly ahead of you. This disconnection is not rejection, it's redirection. You are not being pushed away, you are being pulled higher. You might even find yourself in places where you feel invisible, overlooked, uninvited, and it stings. But don't rush to fill that space. God is allowing invisibility to protect your visibility. If you became visible too soon, you would be vulnerable to voices that were never meant to shape you. The disconnection is giving you room to be built privately, to be strengthened silently, so that when God releases you into the open, you won't be shaken by exposure. You'll be grounded by encounter. Disconnection is also a test. It reveals what you truly rely on. When the applause is gone and the affirmation is quiet, do you still believe what God said? Do you still trust His plan? Can you still stand when your surroundings don't reflect your prophecy? That's where your faith becomes real. That's when you learn that your value was never tied to who accepted you, but to who appointed you. You'll find that in the disconnection, your hunger for God increases. You start craving clarity, depth, and truth. Shallow things can't fill you anymore. Temporary pleasures can't satisfy you. You long for the eternal, for the unshakable, for the God who sees the end from the beginning. That kind of hunger is not accidental, it's intentional. God is emptying you of the old so He can fill you with the new. He's breaking your attachment to what's behind you so you'll have the hands free to receive what's before you. It's important not to fight the disconnection. Don't try to resurrect what God is trying to release. Don't glue together relationships He's cutting loose. Don't plant roots in soil He's calling you out of. Let Him disconnect you. Let Him refine your circle, reposition your focus, and reshape your values. Because the greater the disconnection, the higher the calling, and the clearer your path becomes, the more peace you'll find. Not because everything makes sense, but because your spirit knows it's moving in sync with God's hand. So when you feel the divine disconnection, don't panic, don't retreat, don't try to go back to what once felt right. Lean into it, trust the process. Because sometimes God's way of shifting everything begins by removing you from everything that no longer serves where He's taking you. Let go, move forward, and watch what He does next. When God is about to shift everything in your life, one of the most unexpected and undeniable signs is the sudden arrival of favor that you didn't earn, anticipate, or even ask for. It shows up unannounced, beyond qualification, beyond logic, beyond protocol. It's when doors open without you knocking, when your name is mentioned in places your feet haven't stepped into yet. This kind of favor isn't based on works, it's based on divine will. It's not a reward for perfection, but a reflection of God's purpose being activated at the appointed time. This favor cannot be orchestrated by human effort. It's not the result of networking, hustling, or grinding. It comes straight from the throne of God as a signal that heaven has shifted something on your behalf. You begin to experience opportunities that bypass the traditional path. You get invitations that you didn't campaign for. You receive blessings that you know only God could have coordinated. And while others are confused about how it happened, you stand still in awe, knowing this has nothing to do with you and everything to do with Him. This divine favor is disruptive. It interrupts the regular flow of life. You were moving in one direction, and suddenly God reroutes the entire system in your favor. You don't have the right resume, but you're chosen. You don't have the degree, but you're elevated. You don't have the connections, but you're positioned. This is when you realize that God's favor is more powerful than man's formula. One moment of favor can accomplish more than years of effort. It's not fair, but it's divine. And it always points to purpose. The presence of this favor is not a coincidence. It is strategic. God releases it at the moment when He knows you are ready, not just to receive it, but to carry it well. He knows that if He gave it too soon, it would crush you. So when it comes, it's not a surprise to heaven. It's the fulfillment of something that was already prepared for you before you ever face the process. It's like catching up to what God already finished in eternity. Favor begins to follow you. People begin to offer support without reason. Resources start aligning themselves with your assignment. Rooms you didn't belong in now welcome you. And people who never paid attention before suddenly want to be connected. Don't let it overwhelm you. Understand what it is. It's not fame. It's not popularity. It's not hype. It's God's endorsement. And when He endorses you, no one can block you. No system can stop you. No opposition can overpower you. This sudden favor often makes you a mystery. People will question how you got there. They'll analyze your journey and still not be able to explain it. That's the point. God's favor is designed to confuse the wise and humble the proud. It's a divine signpost that says, "This one was chosen by me." When you walk in this kind of favor, your life becomes a testimony, not of your talent, but of His timing, not of your plans, but of His sovereignty. But with favor comes responsibility. God doesn't elevate you to make you comfortable. He promotes you to make you impactful. The favor on your life is connected to a greater mission. It's not just for you, it's for others. You are blessed to be a blessing. You are favored to create access for others. You are promoted so that His purpose can have greater platform through you. So handle favor with humility. Walk through the open doors with reverence. Remember that it's not about spotlight, it's about assignment. Sometimes this favor will come in the midst of struggle. It will find you while you're still dealing with hardship. That's how you'll know it's from God. It will not wait for everything to be perfect. It will interrupt your pain with His promise, and it will remind you that even in difficulty, God's hand has not left you. His favor doesn't wait for your circumstances to align. It overrides them. That's what makes it supernatural. It's not tied to what's happening around you. It's tied to what's happening above you. And you'll know the favor is divine because you'll feel peace in the midst of rapid movement. Everything around you might be shifting fast, but your spirit will be still. You won't have to chase it. It will come to you. You won't have to force it. It will fit. That's the fingerprint of God. His favor doesn't bring confusion. It brings clarity. It confirms His word. It affirms His timing. And it marks a new season of destiny being unlocked. So when you start noticing unusual favor, when people are going out of their way to help you, when platforms start opening with no explanation, when resources arrive without delay, don't doubt it, don't apologize for it, and don't shrink under it. Embrace it as a divine sign that God is shifting everything in your life. This favor is proof that what was hard before is now under heavenly ease. What was blocked is now blessed. What was resisted is now released. It's your time, not because you forced it, but because God favored it. When God is shifting everything in your life, one of the final and most profound signs is a deep spiritual awakening, a sacred stirring within that tells you something in the invisible is aligning, even if everything in the natural still looks the same. You begin to sense the weight of purpose pressing on your heart in ways you can't ignore anymore. You're no longer satisfied with surface-level living. There's an undeniable hunger rising in your soul, not for applause, not for possessions, but for God Himself. A divine restlessness takes over. It's not anxiety, it's anticipation. You feel it in your spirit before you see it with your eyes. This awakening begins quietly. It doesn't announce itself with lightning or thunder. It slips into your prayer time. It shows up in the tears you can't explain. It comes in the silence that suddenly feels sacred, in the still moments where your heart whispers, something is changing. You begin to long for clarity. You crave intimacy with God in a way you never have before. And even though you're walking through the same daily routines, you are no longer the same person moving through them. Something internal has shifted. Something divine is unfolding. Your desires start to transform. What used to entertain you now leaves you empty. The people, places, and habits that once kept you busy no longer satisfy the deeper calling rising from within. God begins to wean you off distractions. He starts detoxing your spirit from the things that dulled your discernment. It's not that you're becoming antisocial or withdrawn. It's that you're being pulled into a sacred space of refinement. He's awakening your spirit so you can recognize what eyes alone can't perceive. There's a heightened awareness in this season. You begin to sense the invisible movements of God. You notice divine timing in small moments. You begin to perceive patterns in your pain. You understand that nothing is accidental, that even the delays, disappointments, and detours were pointing you toward this very moment. And with that revelation comes a calm knowing you're not lost, you're not forgotten, you're not behind. You're exactly where God needs you to be for this awakening to mature into transformation. Your prayers change too. They become less about asking and more about aligning. You no longer come to God with a list. You come with a surrendered heart. You no longer just want answers. You want direction. You no longer just want relief. You want revelation. You begin to hunger for His will more than your wants. You crave His voice more than validation. This is when you know the shift is real, when His presence becomes more valuable than any platform, possession, or promise. In this awakening, you also begin to dream again. Not just wishful thinking, but spirit-born visions that tug at your soul and refuse to let go. God starts reminding you of things He whispered years ago, dreams you buried under doubt, fear, or failure. He starts resurrecting old prophecies with fresh fire. The visions return, but this time with clarity and conviction. You know you're not chasing fantasy, you're stepping into fulfillment. And the vision doesn't intimidate you anymore because now you've been refined enough to carry it. You'll also notice an increase in spiritual sensitivity. You'll discern things without effort. Your spirit will pick up on atmospheres, intentions, and assignments, not to judge, but to protect your peace and stay aligned with purpose. God sharpens your discernment not to make you suspicious, but to make you strategic. You'll know what to avoid, where to walk, when to speak, and when to be still. It's not paranoia, it's prophetic awareness. This awakening also unlocks courage. Not loud, boastful courage, but quiet, unshakable confidence. You no longer doubt if you're chosen. You know you are. You're no longer afraid of what's ahead. You trust who's leading you. You're not paralyzed by what ifs. You're energized by what's possible. You no longer shrink to fit into spaces that were never designed for you. You walk boldly into rooms with a deep awareness that heaven sent you there on assignment, not to impress, but to impact.